everybody. I'll go ahead and get the class loaded for this evening. And it is called the core of the core. So by far and away, the most common set of exercises that we recommend, especially in the day and age that we live in, is core exercises to complement your chiropractic care. So we love Pilates, we love yoga, we love just regular core exercise to be specific for a couple of different things for depending on what your condition may be. So I'm going to talk about a couple of things today to try and explain what the core is so we can understand it a little bit better, and some of the exercises we do recommend and some of the things we don't recommend anymore, because exercise physiology is teaching us a whole bunch of new things about how to exercise that what we thought was a good idea 20 years ago really isn't that good of an idea anymore when we're looking at some of the newer research and studies that are being done. So we're going to talk about core exercises. My first thing that I need to talk about whenever we do anything when it comes to any type of exercise is we're basically and essentially not asking you to do something this week or this month or this year. We're asking you to do something differently for the rest of your life. And that means we have to create new habits. We have to do new things. We have to push ourselves through what I like to call the I don't wannas. If you say it really fast, it sounds kind of funny. Because we all have those moments. And I'm here to tell you I have them. I have days I don't want to go to the gym, and days that I don't feel like getting on the floor and doing my planks, and days I don't feel like getting on my dinner roll at the end of my workday because I'm pooped and my 4-year-old's climbing on me. Yet we have to find a way inside of us to come up with a reason that's big enough to do it, that's bigger than our reason to I don't want to. And so in that moment, we go to something. And so I want to talk about a couple of different things that we have to understand our how and our why, and that we have to have a why that's big enough to make us want to do it. So if I'm sitting here teaching you how to do these classes, how to do core exercises, it doesn't really matter if you're not going to do them. And so that's the bottom line. We have to open with that conversation, because you have to say, I want a healthier spine. I want to be able to move better. I want to be able to move better for the rest of my life. I don't want to go back to that severe pain that I was in that maybe brought me to the office to begin with. But we live in a day and age where we sit on such a higher level than ever before. And it's such a level that, 15 years ago, we started doing classes of sitting is the new smoking, showing how many people are actually physically dying and bodies are breaking down, and the number of increase in diseases, basically because we're not moving. And I do have a class on sitting is the new smoking. And when I do it, I look at the numbers and I can say, well, I'm looking at statistics from 2008, and they're far worse now than they were back then. And 14, 15 years ago is not really good research anymore, because people are dying way worse from sitting than ever died from smoking. And we have to pause for a second and think about that. Like, we've become such an inactive society that we're seeing diseases that we maybe saw as kids and grandma are now occurring in teenagers. Heart disease, type 2 diabetes, cancers, things that old people got 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago are now showing up in kids. And it's because we've taken gym out of schools. There is an activity, video games, cell phones, TV, where there is no go out and play. And over the last year with this pandemic of lockdown and stay in your home, things are exponentially worse than ever before, because now we're seeing all the psychological effects that we're seeing, and not just adults, but in kids on such a level that we've never experienced before in our society. So being up and being moving is something that is essential to everything. There is no movement that we make that doesn't first engage our core group of muscles in order to be able to do the movement. I can't lift anything, I can't push anything, I can't pull anything, I can't twist, I can't turn, I can't lift my leg. And there's no movement that you can make that the core isn't the essential anchor for all the other movements that we do in our body. So when we have a situation like that, we have to say, well, when people say, well, I'm going to go back, I'm going to go work out. Well, if you've been sitting for 10 years at a desk and you've been sleeping on a junky mattress every night, and you've been falling asleep on the couch, and you haven't engaged your core at all, and you go to the gym, well, it's more than likely only going to be a matter of time before you lift something or move the wrong way, because unless you're really focused on building the core first and then adding all these muscles to the rest of your body, you're in trouble. And the core of the core we're going to speak to towards the end of the class. Don't want to give it away just yet. So these are some pictures, and I apologize, this is blurry, but I wanted to show as much of this as I possibly could, because, you know, the core, everybody says, oh, core, well, it's the abs. No, it's not. Your abs are just a piece of the puzzle. All of your gluteus muscles, especially glute medius, minimus, maximus, multifidus, are very, very, very tiny muscles in between each and every vertebrae in our spine. Erector spinae are the big long muscles that you can see if you look at somebody's back running next to the spine. All our different ab muscles running in all different directions. And I'm going to include in that the hamstrings and the psoas, which sits behind the stomach muscles, but attaches to the back, are two really critical things, because when we sit, our legs are flexed. So you're flexed forward, which shortens your psoas muscle or iliopsoas muscle, and our hamstrings on the back of our leg are shortened because we're in a bent leg position for most of the time. And over time, your body adapts to sitting. So these muscles become shorter. And then when you go to try and make any type of movement or quick movement or lift anything or move anything heavy, those muscles are not the length they're supposed to. And that pulls awkwardly on the spine. And even if you have a healthy spine, you can still hurt yourself. So there's, depending on who you talk to, when you go to engage your core to make certain movements, there's between 25 and 45 different muscles that are going to fire in your core before your bigger muscles even start to make the movements of your arms and legs. So I spoke to earlier just a little bit, now that we understand what the core encompasses, that we have to have a why. And so understanding why, I pulled out some of the bigger things that having a strong core is related to. So I say this, well, if you have a strong core, it will improve these following things. And I finish with, if you have a weak core, then it's also gradually taking away from all these things, the weaker that your core becomes. So things like posture. I think posture is a frustrating thing for me, because being a chiropractor, I said, well, you know, the function of your nervous system is critical to the entire health of your entire body. And if your brain cannot get messages clearly out to your internal organs and all your cells, well, then you can't be at your healthiest. And I could do a class on that and on the nervous system and say that, and more people are going to show up to a posture class. More people are concerned about the way they look than about the way they feel and about their health. And to me, that's sad, but it's also, you know, it's just reality. It's a dilemma for us as doctors, but it's also something we have to acknowledge. So I put posture first, not because it's the most important, but I put it there because it'll catch most people's attention. And nobody wants to see a picture of themselves slouched over, belly sticking out, one shoulder higher than the other. You know, but are all signs of a weak core, yet at the same time, it could be the thing that says, I'm sick of looking like that. I don't want to look like that anymore, so I want to improve my posture. Well, I can tell you how to do neck exercises and try and get your head from being hanging off the front of your shoulders, but it doesn't matter if your stomach and back muscles are weak, you're still going to fall forward. Even if your neck's in the right position, it's still forward off your shoulders. So having a strong core is the center to all of it. It's the key to starting to improve your posture. Overall strength, like I mentioned before, so many studies have been done. Football players, wrestlers, you know, these athletes that go at really tough angles and positions and injuries, and man, they're big, they're super, super strong. But we never really focused on working on the core until about 15 years ago, and started doing this craze, and exercise physiology came out and started saying, hey, this little tiny less than an inch long muscle in your low back is actually more important than the giant pecs that are helping you bench 600 pounds. Because if you're going to be hit at an awkward angle on a football field, that little tiny muscle is the only thing protecting you, not the big one. Yes, that helps you push, but again, if you don't have the core to support it, you're in trouble. Your back's going to give out. And so we started doing things like, you'll see guys, well, they're still bench pressing, but they may bench press on an exercise ball, or they may try and do something where they're doing balance while they're doing curls at the same time. So they're firing the brain to send these messages, electric messages through the nervous system to all these muscles and these tiny little muscles in the back and the smaller muscles of the core. And so strength training has improved dramatically now that we understand how important the core is. But like I said, if you're going to go try and get big and not get a strong core, you're going to get hurt. It's just going to happen. You can't avoid it. Balance and stability. So, the core giving us improved posture. Brain knows where everything else is on a much better level because it knows where all the joints are and how everything's moving because it's the way it's supposed to be, not in some poor posture. But improving the core definitely improves our balance and stability. Try and push somebody, who's got a weak core, you can knock them right over. But a strong core, if you push them, they won't budge. And that's because the neurological, but also muscular part of the stability that comes with that. It's our foundation for all other movements, as I already mentioned. So breathing, digestion, and circulation. So these are huge because there's a lot of studies out there showing that we can't breathe properly without a strong core, because the abdominal muscles are integral to our ability to take a deep breath and exhale. And it's not just the diaphragm that does that. There's all these accessory muscles that are aiding in breathing all day long. And many of us haven't had a deep breath in years. So because we're just not exercising to begin with and moving enough to be able to do it. But deep breathing is critical to oxygenating our cells and how our brain works. And especially over long term, Alzheimer's is a major issue in our society right now. And there's a lot of it comes down to how less often we see it in people who exercise more often and how much higher the numbers are in people who don't. It's not the key, it's not the answer, but there's definitely a correlation to decreasing your chances. Digestion is critical. Our digestive tube, if you will, of intestines is all lined by muscle. And that's what moves this food through. But they're soft, smooth muscles. And if there isn't the outer pressure compressing those intestines to begin with, and everything is bloated out and pushed out, and there's no strength in your abdomen at all, then it's much harder to move food through at the proper pace to be able to absorb and digest food properly. And of course, circulation. So if you're in a seated position all the time, your circulation, anybody sat long enough knows a foot's gone tingly or numb because you just haven't gotten up and moved around enough to be able to get the blood flow. Circulation is grossly affected by sitting all the time. And building a strong core actually helps your heart push the blood down through the arteries into your feet and allow the pressure for your veins to maintain that pressure to bring the blood back to the heart. So critical to really, let's just say, your overall health, because we're talking about a lot of different things. We're talking about the nervous system, the respiratory system, the digestive system, the circulatory system. Almost everything is evolved around a strong core. So, and like I mentioned earlier, every one of these gets worse if you have a weak core. So I'm spending time on this because I want to give the why to the I don't want to. I want to say, hey, if posture is your thing, then you say, man, I don't want to have a crappy posture. I don't want to be that old guy going through the shopping mall, because I can't lift my head up and walk straight. Or, I don't want to be that old lady who has bad balance and falls and breaks a hip. And I don't want to be weak as I get older. And, but I don't want to have breathing and digestive and circulatory problems. And so, just pick whatever's yours. But the reason I spent the time on this is really to say, you've got to have a why that's big enough to do these things. They're critical, and they take so little time to really make a big difference. If we're going to put some energy and effort into our core, they're the type of muscles that aren't going to benefit from lifting 600 pounds. They're the type of muscles that benefit from doing them for a period of time and doing them consistently. so that we have different types of muscle tissue in our body. Our pecs are, I'm going to go and I'm going to bench press, and I'm going to, if I do 8, it'll get bigger. If I do 12, I'll stay slim. The baseline. But the core isn't like that. The core is smaller muscles, flatter muscles, and the purpose of them is to really be able to maintain and stay contracted and hold tone for really long periods of time. So doing something really heavy just a couple of times isn't how you work out that muscle. That's not the way it's going to respond the best. It's going to respond the best by holding it for longer periods of time. And the way you do that is by exercising it every day or most days for just a couple of minutes, rather than trying to do a big workout once in a while for your core. Okay? And I think that's critical to understanding. One thing I have to mention when we talk about the core, your stomach will not look like this because you're doing exercises. Your stomach only looks like that because of having a super healthy diet that's low in things that cause inflammation in your body. If you're eating foods that cause inflammation, your body will become inflamed and you will not see those abs. They could be there. Trust me, they're there on most all of us, but we're not going to be able to see them unless we're actually losing enough weight and we get slim enough and trim enough down to do that. This is not the goal of this class. My goal of this class is you to learn how to have a strong enough core that it helps and supports your spine and back and all the other healthy things that we just talked about. And so I'm far more concerned about your health than your abs, but I know people want to see their abs and they think we all want to do it, but not everybody wants to do the work because we got too many I don't want us. Our I don't want us are bigger than our want us. And so we don't get things done. So breaking the exercise down. So I'm going to break this down into modified, basic, and advanced. The key to this that we can tell, and I'm going to talk about the 2-minute rule, because basically one of our key exercises that we're going to talk about is planks. So you're not doing sit-ups, you're not doing crunches, you're not bending your back and twisting your back and putting yourself into all these weird positions that could potentially hurt your spine. We're trying to find ways to engage all the muscles of the core in one moment and maintain it and hold it for a period of time. Like I mentioned before, that's what these muscles respond to the best. So in doing it, people will say, well, I can't get on the floor and can't do a plank. I know you got that. I can't is to go with the I don't want is, but we have ways of doing these things that I'm going to discuss here coming up. So when you go from basic, if you want to go from basic to advanced and start to do some more wild things with your core, I would not do that unless you can do a 2-minute plank first. Then if you could do a 2-minute front plank, which on the top right is, I want to move this so we can see it. So on the top left, I apologize, is a basic plank. So these are just pictures off the internet. It give us some ideas of what we're talking about. So you basically want to be in this position, and you want to be able, on the top left photograph, and you want your body to be as straight as a plank. And the key to every plank and the key to every abdominal exercise is one simple movement. So even though you're sitting in your chair right this moment, what I want you to do is just get yourself in a good posture, head up over your spine, so you feel like your head's not leaning forward or hunched or down or stressed. You should move it there and then kind of relax your shoulders. And I want you to pull in your stomach muscle so that you're thinking of pulling your belly button towards your back or towards your spine. And when you do that, you're going to feel that muscle, those muscles engage. And if you pay attention for a couple of seconds, you'll realize that when I do that, I can actually feel my back muscles tighten up as well. Because you can't tighten up your stomach muscles without tightening your back muscles, or you'll just flex right over. The back muscles have to tighten as well. And then you may even notice that while you're doing that, I can actually feel some of my glute muscles are actually tightening, trying to hold me in this posture. So what you're doing in your chair is a core exercise. So if you can sit up, you can do a core exercise. If you can lay down on your back in bed and pull your stomach muscle in and your belly button towards your spine, you can actually work your core. So there's no excuse for not being able to do a core workout. It's just, we think we have to make it look like jumping around on TV with dumbbells and weights and throwing tires and stuff like this. No, No, it's not the way it is. Your core muscles need to get worked, and they need to be engaged, again, for all the reasons I mentioned before. When we do a front plank, if you could do a front plank, let's say for 30 seconds, you're just getting started out, 30 seconds is all I can do. Great. Well, you do 30 seconds. If you're going to do a side plank, which is the picture to the right on the top, that's going to be half the amount of time as the front plank. So if you can do a 30-second front plank, you should do a 15-second for each side plank, 15 seconds each. So it should be half of whatever the front plank is. And this may sound like, oh, yeah, I know planks, I get it, but some people don't. So I'm spending a little extra time on this because I want you to understand the basics. So in this position, if you were to modify it and say, well, I can't really even do a 30-second front plank, then I say, well, okay, well, can you, on your elbows like this, maybe put your knees to the ground and take some of the pressure off of your back and some of the pressure off of your shoulders and elbows, but can you now get to 30 seconds? And could you bend your knees on your side plank so you're actually leaning on your knees, not the weight on your ankles, to take even more pressure off of the muscles and maybe do your 15 seconds that way and modify it. And we have a sheet for that shows the regular and the modified versions in the office. If anybody wants it, I'd be glad to give it to you. But just for tonight's class sake, please understand there's ways to modify everything we're doing. Down at the bottom, here's a plank where somebody's using an exercise ball. And these are great. These are fun to even just mix up into your regular routine sometimes if you have one or have access to one, because even if you are there is actually less pressure on your abdomen in that position on the exercise ball. But what's happening is you're balancing. And every time you shift your weight and you come back the other way, every one of those tiny little movements is activating all the tiny little muscles in your back and around your abdomen that are the most important of all. So yes, planks are my favorite, but mixing in an exercise ball to do planks sometimes, even though it feels like you're not working as hard, if you're moving from side to side and trying to catch your balance to maintain it, you're teaching your brain so much, you're teaching your nervous system so much. Every joint in your body is getting more connected to your brain, and your balance for the rest of your life moving forward will be improved. And it doesn't matter what age you are, you can regrow this. The scientific research shows us you can gain muscle tissue and you can regrow nerve tissue and reawaken some of your old nerve tissues that you haven't used in years. So couple of the other ones I like, on the top left, we see these, they're called Supermans, airplanes. There's all kinds of crazy names for all these things. There's another one where you lay flat on your stomach and lift your arms, one arm and one leg, or both at the same time if this one's too hard or your knees hurt. So modifying again anyway is fine. And one of my other great ones is a bridge. So you lay on your back and you're going to lift your legs, you're going to lift your glutes, you're squeezing your glute this time is the focus. You still want to do, like I said, every single exercise, you're focusing on pulling the belly button in towards the spine while you do it and holding that. But this one's going to work the glute and the hamstring a little bit more and stretch out that psoas a little bit. Excuse me. And that's going to give us a great exercise. Most of these are done, again, to maintain. You're not up and down and up and down and up and down. You're up into the position, you're holding the position. Maybe it's 10 seconds, maybe it's 15 seconds, and then you're going to repeat it again. And maybe you'll do a set of 10 for 10 seconds. I love that as one of my favorite points to get to. Sometimes you can only start out with maybe doing 4 for 10 seconds or 3 for 10 seconds, but your goal is to do 10 for 10 seconds. And again, these are not things that you don't want to do 25, 30-second planks. That's not what you want to do. You want to do it for as long as you can do it. You want to do your side plank for half that amount of time. You want to mix in the exercise balls when you can, but you want to be able to do these for 10 seconds. So really like a solid core workout might take 5 minutes. So I don't know anybody done that 5 minutes. You can say I'm so busy, I don't have the time. But I promise you, there's 5 minutes in your day you wasted somewhere playing a game on a cell phone or looking at something you shouldn't have been looking at, or watching a TV commercial where you could have jumped on the floor, because some of these TV shows aren't 2-minute commercials, they're 5-minute commercials now. So you can just not pause it. You can actually just get on the floor and do something really productive during your favorite TV show. It's there. It's there. The time is there. And these don't have to be done a lot. They just have to be done often with consistency. So we can't, if you're doing anywhere to 5 to 7 days a week working on your core, there's no doubt that your core is going to be improved in 6 weeks, 6 months, a year, 6 years down the road, where you're going to be absolutely positively healthier because of the 5 minutes that you took to do it. And can you get really good at it and put more time into it? Absolutely. But you don't start doing any craziness until you've passed that 2-minute mark of the front plank or the 2-minute roll. So one of the questions I always ask is, what's your why? So I ask anybody who's watching this to please do not leave tonight without thinking of one of the things I gave you before. And I'll go back to it actually if we have a couple of minutes so you can pick yours, but don't leave tonight without picking a why. What's most important to you? Is your posture most important? Doesn't matter what it is, but pick something and just put it up someplace and say, put it on a Post-it note on your computer, put it on your refrigerator, just put posture, put breathing. I have a patient who's right now came through the other day who's working on some deep breathing exercises, telling me in her 60s that this is the best she's ever felt in her life, because she's been realizing for a good majority of the last 20 years, she's been in stressful situations, running and operating businesses, and hasn't taken a deep breath. So it's like, there's certain things, some of the simplest things of our body's mechanisms are the things that we're forgetting to do and to support. For me, I put this picture up here for the spine because really, what's the core of the core? The core of the core is your spine. I've mentioned it. I'm a chiropractor, so I can't do a class like this without talking about it. It's the #1 recommended thing is core exercises, because it's the #1 weakest thing in our body, and it makes it very difficult for patients to hold their adjustments. Most of us can't get past, some of us have such stressful lives we can't get past a certain point because our bodies are just under physical stress. And some of us can't get past certain points because we've got so much damage to our spines that if we go too far, no matter how healthy we are, we're going to need another adjustment. But for the good majority of people with healthy spines, if your core is strong, you can go longer and longer and longer in between your adjustments because you're going to hold your adjustments. So if anything, it's going to save you money to do core exercises to strengthen your core. And so for me, exercising should always start with the core first. We have great personal trainers that are patients of ours, Rocky Kitzmiller and Bill Yancey, and just to name a couple of them. I know there's a few more out there, but these people who have been doing this for many, many, many years will not let you do anything in their gym until you build up your core. You can't add something to a very weak foundation. We see more people who come in and say, I did physical therapy, it didn't help. Well, okay, well, let's adjust your spine and get your spine, your foundation for everything, and the proper alignment, as good as we can get it based on whatever condition it's in. And then let's start to exercise and build strength and build on that foundation. But we can't build on the other muscles until we build the core around the spine. So the core of the core is the spine. We start with that. Once your spine's moving and healthy enough, we're going to recommend that you do these core exercises and start to build them up. There's many, many, many more. You can Google things and see things, but please do not do anything other than the basics until you're comfortable with that 2-minute front plank. Then you can do the arms thing, swinging around, and the feet thing, kicking and rolling around and still, but you've got to be able to have that core strong enough first, and then you can build onto it. I know I've said it plenty of times today, but I have to drive that point home. We have classes on YouTube already. So there's already some classes on our YouTube page at rosemondchiropractic.com. I'm learning this whole YouTube thing out. So I realized that, unless you're a subscriber, you don't know when we put a new class up. And unless you subscribe, you can't go directly to our page. So you might see one or two of our classes, but to find the class you might be specifically looking for, you might have to go through 15 other advertisements or other people's classes before you see the next couple of our classes. It's just the way YouTube does it. So I encourage anybody watching this to please take a minute, go to YouTube, subscribe. That's all it takes. And then once you're there, then you can see all the classes. But there are other classes that have to do with all types of nutrition and different types of education. But definitely there are exercises already there about some of the foam rolling, which is a good core workout. There's yoga, and there's definitely some classes that are already there about building the glute medius and working on the core so you can actually visually see. And some of them, some of them are 7, 8, 9 minutes. Some are just a couple of minutes, but it gives the opportunity to visually see it. Got to say this, please talk to us before you go exercising. So if I've referred you to this class to come watch it because I know I've posted it and it's a great class for you to watch to understand how to work your core, that's great. But I don't think everybody is okay with it. Maybe we just start out with just sitting at your desk and pulling your stomach tight and pulling that belly button in a good posture and holding it for 15 seconds if you can do that, or 30 seconds if you can do that, because your knees and shoulders can't support anything else. Maybe you're just taking a break in the middle of your day and you're going to get into a push-up position on the corner of a nice, firm, sturdy desk that isn't going to slide down underneath you in an angled position, and just engage your stomach muscle the way we saw the lady do it with the ball earlier. So there's ways, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's plenty of ways, but please talk to us so we can guide you into, yes, it's the time to do this, and yes, it's the time to take this to the next level. If you have a personal trainer, please keep us involved. So there's some great personal trainers I mentioned a couple of minutes ago that we have had as patients for many years, and they know what our opinions are, and we're completely in line with the right way to do things. But there's a whole bunch of personal trainers out there that you may want to go to, and maybe your back isn't going to be okay doing a specific deadlift move or a specific squat or certain overhead movements because you have neck and shoulder problems and so on and so forth. So please talk to us so we can be involved in that process with you and let you know what you can and can't do, because exercise is so critical to health, but it has to be done the right way, bottom line. So that's the end of my show for today, so to speak. What I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to pause and have anybody who has any questions be able to answer them, and the recording.
Thank you for watching our video. If you like what you saw, be sure to subscribe to our channel.
Yeah, and like us on Facebook. There's always a lot of information also on our website at rosemontchiropractic.com.